All right, thank you. We'll go ahead and give the secretary the nod that she can begin recording. All right, everyone, welcome to the Senate Committee on Growth and Infrastructure. Will the secretary please call the roll?
Senator Brooks?
Here.
Senator Hammond? Senator Pickard?
Here.
Senator Spearman?
Here.
Chair Harris?
Here, there are 4 members present. We have a quorum. We'll go ahead and mark Senator Hammond present as he arrives. Just a couple reminders, everybody, please be courteous, respectful with others during the meeting, even if you disagree with another person's position. For those participating on Zoom, go ahead and remember to mute yourself when you are not speaking. A couple of ways to participate, although I hope everyone's familiar with those at this point. You can submit an opinion poll on Nellis. You can call in for public comment. You can submit your written public comment. Information on that will be on the agenda. And if you have any issues, you can contact our committee secretary, whose information is also on the agenda. First on our agenda today is Senate Bill 315, which revises provisions relating to mufflers on motor vehicles. Let's welcome our colleague, Senator Orenshaw. Please go ahead and begin when you are ready.
Good afternoon, Chair Harris, members of the Senate Growth and Infrastructure Committee. For the record, James Orenshaw. I represent State Senate District 21. That's parts of Henderson and unincorporated Clark County. Senate Bill 315 is a bill that came out of a lot of requests and complaints I've had from neighbors, neighborhood associations, and constituents who've been concerned about what they've seen in the last year. A lot of very late night drag racing and very, very loud sounds coming from the vehicles that are doing this late night racing. Senate Bill 315 does not address the issue of street racing or drag racing, but it does address the issue of modifications to the muffler exhaust system on a vehicle that are intended to make that produce a lot more sound than it originally did. That certainly is, it can be harmful to people's hearing, and it can be disruptive to their quality of life. In my research on this legislation, what I've also learned is that there is a causal connection very often when these modifications are made in terms of trying to increase the volume and the sound produced either by a modified muffler or by bypassing that muffler completely so that there is no muffler, and that the causal connection is with air pollution and emission control. And that what I've learned is that many of these vehicles that are modified to make this increased sound also would no longer pass smog check, and would be polluting at a level that is certainly not what we would want or what is permitted. It's a brief bill, and I've looked around at a lot of other states in terms of trying to come up with this legislation. There are some different models around the country, and I've had a lot of input. DMV has been a great resource for me. Today, Chair, on the Zoom, I do see Chief J.D. Decker of the Enforcement Division of the Nevada Department of Motor Vehicles. He's here in the neutral position, but he is a tremendous resource as to the issues that come up when there's modifications made, and in terms of the air pollution that can result, and how certain things are handled now at DMV and how they could be handled if legislation like this were to pass. Additionally, I also see Christian Robinson from Washington, D.C. of the Specialty Equipment Manufacturers Association called SEMA. They're a group of an organization that represents automotive enthusiasts. And I've been very fortunate to have input from Mr. Robinson and his organization on this legislation. I believe that he submitted a letter that was sent around to all committee members. And he's a resource on legislation like Senate Bill 315. There's a lot of bills like this around the country in the last few months that he and I talked about. And there is an amendment on Nellis, which actually proposes to amend the legislation so as to allow a 45-day grace period where someone could repair this and there would be no fine imposed. And in addition to that, another point that I've had a chance to discuss with some of the different stakeholders is the idea of possibly allowing any other regulations to be set by Department of Motor Vehicles as to what would be the appropriate maximum decibel level. But I am certainly open to any suggestions from any of the other stakeholders. And with your permission, Chair, I wonder if I could turn it over to either Chief Decker or Mr. Robinson, and then I'm happy to answer any questions. I think they've got a lot more information and expertise on this than I do, of course.
Mr. Decker, welcome. Just please state your name for the record as you speak.
Chair Harris, nice to see you. Committee members, J.D. Decker, for the record, Chief of the Compliance Enforcement Division for the Department of Motor Vehicles. We are the state agency that is tasked with regulating motor vehicle emissions in Nevada. And we find generally that exhaust system performance modifications often defeat, bypass, or alter factory exhaust systems and can lead to compromising vehicle emission standards. In fact, generally, gains in performance are accomplished in exactly that way. We feel this bill would be a great tool for us to use in enforcing the emission standards in Nevada by helping us to identify vehicles that have been modified and are likely to be or may be violating vehicle emission standards. And the penalty structure is set up like our administrative process for handling smoking vehicles and emissions violators. So I'd be happy to answer any questions the committee may have to the extent that my technical knowledge will allow.
Did we want to go to Mr. Robinson first, Senator Orenshaw?
With your permission, Chair Harris, that would be great. Thank you.
All right, Mr. Robinson, welcome to the committee. Go ahead and just state your name for the record as you speak.
Absolutely. Christian Robinson, and I'm with the Specialty Equipment Market Association, or SEMA. A little background about our association. We're made up nationwide of about 7,500, mostly small businesses, of which 117 are based in Nevada. Our member companies manufacture, market, and sell specialty automotive parts, including exhaust components, but also restoration parts, appearance parts, anything having to do with performance or comfort or convenience or technology for motor vehicles. And we're probably best known as an association for our trade show, our annual trade show, which is typically, outside of 2020, first week of November at the Las Vegas Convention Center, and we attract about 160,000 individuals per year to that event. As Senator Orenshaw mentioned at the top, one of the trends that we've seen nationwide this year in terms of automotive laws definitely would be dealing with both illegal street racing, which I know this bill doesn't handle, but also modifications to a vehicle that make them unnecessarily loud. This really stems from the quarantine periods that we saw due to COVID. Roads were clear, people behaved badly. You've had a lot of people at home, furthermore, doing work during the quarantine periods and lockdowns, and they're much more attuned to the noises in their neighborhoods. I said to the senator, I've got a 15-month-old child at home, and it's something that I've been dealing with locally here in Maryland, the suburbs of D.C., as well at nights, and it's not a lot of fun. But really, these actors are give a black eye to true enthusiasts, and it's not something that SEMA condones. Oftentimes what these folks have done, which the senator alluded to, what Mr. Decker alluded to, is gone with what's called a straight pipe. Where they've deleted the muffler, they deleted emission components like the catalytic converter and O2 sensors, and made the car just obnoxiously loud. It almost can sound like gunfire, which I know other municipalities and states have had issues with. I was able to speak with the senator, I think, and provide him with my feedback and concerns with the bill as it's currently written, but it became clear in our discussions that we're really not far apart on what the aims of the bill are, and I think a reasonable solution can be reached through the regulatory process. Now, our biggest concern was a blanket modification ban, and the reality is that not all mufflers are created equal. You might have a Honda Civic that puts out 75 decibels, and then a Porsche 911 GT3 that puts out over 95. An enthusiast might want to modify his exhaust system legally with emission parts still in place. He may modify it up to 85, but it would then be rendered illegal, while a much louder car that hasn't been modified would still be legal because it's in the same configuration as it when it left the dealership. So we like California's model, as I mentioned in my letter. It sets an upper limit for exhaust noise, and then has a compliance system in place to get it tested, and a fix-it system, a carrot and a stick, to make sure that ultimately vehicles are brought into compliance with the law. That also has a method to get tickets dismissed if they're found to be compliant in their current state. It uses a Society of Automotive Engineers standard. Again, this is something that can be worked out through the regulatory process. I'd be happy to answer any questions that the committee may have, and I thank everyone for giving me the opportunity to speak today.
All right, thank you. Senator Orenshaw, are you ready for questions, or did you have more on your presentation?
I am ready for questions, Chair. And the amendment that I have proposed on Nellis, certainly after conversations with Chief Decker and with Mr. Robinson, I believe that the statutory scheme in California seems to be working in terms of giving people a chance to correct the problem and avoid any fines or any registration suspension. And I think that the only thing that I would hope might be done differently in Nevada in a statute is leaving any maximum decibel level for vehicle noise up to DMV to set by regulation, rather than putting that in statute. In California, it's put in statute at the 95 decibels, and I believe that's something that talking to Mr. Robinson of SEMA, I believe we agree on. So if there's any possibility of considering that, I think that might be a wise way to go, because it seems to be a workable solution in our state to the west in terms of trying to deal with the vehicle noise. And here, I believe much of the problem is not so much the enthusiasts who are modifying their vehicles, it's people who are completely bypassing the muffler.
All right, thank you. It looks like we have a question from Senator Pickard.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And I didn't see the amendment. Mine is a practical question. We're talking about a fairly sizable industry. Glass packs have been around since I was a kid, and they are common. And so I'm wondering, not only is this a question about the scope of the effort, but then how do we enforce it, right? So we're going to have to take thousands of these off the street. We're going to have to train law enforcement, because currently we have noise statutes that prohibit the kinds of things that were described in terms of, sustained loud noises in neighborhoods, particularly late at night. There are noise ordinances in both Clark County and at least in Henderson. I assume the other local jurisdictions have them as well. And police regularly, they've got more important things to do. They don't show up for these things unless there's street racing or, there's been an accident. At least that's been my experience. So how do we do this? How do we train the officers? Do we give them noise meter devices so that they can see, are they above the threshold? Do they have the proper training to be able to do this? And have we talked to them to see if they're even inclined to do it? Personally, I have no problem. I'd never put a glass pack in my car. I find them incredibly annoying, but currently they're legal. And so I'm wondering, how do we implement this plan without it being like the unlawful lifting of a truck without the proper equipment? We don't enforce it.
Through you, Chair Harris, to Senator Pickard. I think a good example to look at right now are Nevada's penalties we have on cars that are not up to snuff on the smog check. There are ways that citizens can report smokers, cars that are excessively putting out pollution. And certainly I understand law enforcement has so much else to worry about that this is not near the top of the list. But still, there are negative effects of this, both in terms of people's quality of life and in terms of air pollution. Nevada, the research I've done, is one of the few states that does not set any maximum decibel level as to vehicle noise, nor have any state statutes about modifying or bypassing the muffler exhaust system. So that creates a particular problem for us. Certainly there are patchworks of local ordinances in the local jurisdictions, but I believe that if something like this passes, then whether someone is given a ticket or reported to the DMV, there would be a way to try and have that vehicle brought in perhaps for an inspection, make sure that the muffler exhaust system has not been modified, make sure that it does pass smog, and that the effort to make it a loud vehicle has not also made it an air pollution vehicle on wheels. So certainly I believe there are ways to implement this. The states around the country do implement this, and I think there's a lot of benefit both for our constituents and for the environment for something like this to pass. And if Mr. Chief Decker or Mr. Robinson care to jump in about what's happening, either in other states or what we do currently with our smog enforcement, I appreciate that.
Thank you, Senator Orenshaw. Chair Harris, through you to Senator Pickard, J.D. Decker, for the record, Chief of DMV Compliance Enforcement. Senator Pickard, you bring up an excellent point, and it's a similar point to the problems we have enforcing vehicle emission standards generally as well. We don't have a lot of other law enforcement agencies necessarily writing tickets for smoking vehicles, let's say, even though it is currently illegal. So what my agency does is we try to educate or work with agencies that target street racing and other violations that are associated with that. And we've established our Smog Spotter program, which allows both members of the general public and law enforcement agencies to report smoking vehicles or emissions violators, or in a case of a bill like this, noise complaints to my emissions labs, who can then, through the administrative process, request that the vehicle be inspected by the vehicle emissions lab. So I imagine that it would work similar to that on the practical end. In order to answer your question, hopefully.
This is Christian Robinson for the record. What we've seen in several states, and I can speak specifically to what California does, if an officer suspects that a car has surpassed the 95 decibel limit, what he or she will do is issue the ticket to the motorist, instructing them to go see what's called the referee, essentially an inspection station, where the inspection station will carry out a Society of Automotive Engineers test to determine if the vehicle has gone over the 95 decibel limit. It's very scientific. The organization SAE has been around for over 100 years, takes into account ambient noise, wind, weather conditions, it prescribes the angle on the rev of the engine. They will determine if you're over 95. If you're under, you're given what's called a certificate of compliance. It allows the ticket to be dismissed. If you're found to be too loud, you have 30 days to bring the vehicle into compliance and have it rechecked so that ultimately the mission is accomplished to bring the vehicle under the 95 decibel threshold. What we've seen in other states, and I can only speak broadly to this, is yes, there have been proposals in other states to equip officers with decibel readers. I think, in my opinion, you'd run into issues of noise, of roadside noise, potentially skewing it. And we've seen proposals in other states do it with their annual safety inspection on a vehicle.
All right, I appreciate that. And Mr. Robinson, this is a question for you specifically. I can't imagine that this is a tiny industry. It's probably not a huge industry either. My guess is if you're coming in support of this, they don't have a big presence in your organization, or they won't anyway after this. But how many people are we putting out of business here by not allowing these kind of modifications?
So at this point, I would describe our position as neutral on this bill. hoping to work something out with the senator. I think there's definitely a pathway for this. SEMA itself is a $46 billion trade association in terms of annual sales, and exhaust manufacturers are certainly one of our primary segments. Not the largest. I believe it's a couple of $2 billion.
All right, I appreciate that. I just, anytime somebody gets up as part of a presenting crew, they're going to be viewed as supportive, if not officially. So I mean, I'm fascinated by this. I haven't seen this kind of active effort to curtail what I agree is potentially a problem. I just think from a practical standpoint, it's an interesting question. Anyway, thank you, Madam Chair. Appreciate the opportunity to ask a question.
And Madam Chair, if I might just respond to Senator Pickard's question, I certainly am open to a potential conceptual amendment if the committee is interested that would mirror California's vehicle noise statute. I believe that's a California code 27150.2. I think the only thing that I would hope, and I discussed this with Mr. Robinson, is that any maximum decibel level not be put in statute, that DMV be allowed to set that by regulation, where DMV could have the expertise to set that rather than us putting a maximum decibel level in statute. In California, it's set at 95 decibels. And in California, enthusiasts under the statute are allowed to make modifications so long as it is within that maximum decibel level. And I think that would be a good compromise because that would protect automotive enthusiasts, but it would not allow this complete bypass or deletion of the muffler exhaust system, which is very hard on our constituents, on their quality of life, on their hearing, and on our clean air, as we found out, because it often leads to bad emission control. But I've certainly, I would agree to an amendment that would mirror the California code on vehicle noise that Mr. Robinson and I believe I've talked about that a little bit with Chief Decker as well.
And Madam Chair, I don't want my comments to sound like I'm asking for any modifications to this, to overuse a term. But I'm surprised just because I think the magnitude is a little larger, and I'm concerned about, what is this going to cost? Whether we're doing this at Smog or we're doing this in a inspection station or however we're doing it, it sounds like we're going to have to be adding equipment to do these kind of tests. So I would imagine there's going to be some fiscal impact, if not to the state, to the individuals that are charged to do this. But I'm supportive of the concept. I just hate to see us spinning our wheels on things that make a lot of noise but don't do a lot of good, or don't have a big effect, to use as many metaphors as I can come up with off the top of my head. Thank you, Madam Chair.
And Madam Chair, I'm sorry to belabor the point, but if I could respond to that, in conversations I've had with Chief Decker, certainly I think that there is an option of requiring a new smog test, because once the motorist has tried to repair the muffler exhaust system, a smog check could actually be the check that's needed rather than some new equipment. And please correct me, Chief Decker, if I'm wrong, but I believe that the current smog check that we require for people who've got those smoking vehicles could also work for this, because if the muffler exhaust system is not working correctly, the car will most likely not pass smog.
J.D. Decker, for the record, through you, Chair Harris, to Senator Orenthal. That is correct. The DMV has emissions labs with trained technicians, and we currently, in order to adjudicate emissions citations, the administrative citations that are issued, or the complaints to the smog spotters, the vehicle is brought to the DMV emissions lab, and we have techs that will determine whether the vehicle is actually in violation or not.
Senator Spearman.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Senator Orenthal, question. I heard you say something about the environment. Is that physical environment? Is that clean air around places where low-wealth communities are at this time?
Thank you, Chair Harris, to you and through you to Senator Spearman. What I have learned in working on this legislation is that when someone it oftentimes modifies their muffler exhaust system or deletes it or bypasses it, that the emissions controls, which should be controlling the air pollution in that vehicle, often are defeated. And the car is now putting out a lot of air pollution beyond what would pass at a smog check. That there is a connection between the loud noise that my constituents reached out to me about for this bill and air pollution, which when they first contacted me, I wasn't aware of that connection, but that is what I've learned. I think Chief Decker has, a lot more information about that, and perhaps Mr. Robinson does as well.
JD Decker for the record. Chair Harris, through you to Senator Orenshaw. Thank you for the question. So we know that exhaust modifications have the high potential for defeating or bypassing emissions control devices in order to either increase performance or increase the sound. I think in answer to Senator Spearman's question, the noise pollution through a muffler that is modified to be illegal or excessively loud or excessively emitting exhaust for performance reasons impacts both the physical environment, but also our clean air and violates emission standards. And I think overall there's impact to both for people that reside in areas where these vehicles might be racing up and down the street, or even driving past an open air restaurant on the Strip. Thank you.
Madam Chair, follow up. So here's my deeper concern. Many of the people who live in low wealth communities also live near high traffic areas. And we already know that there is a direct correlation between emissions from all of the traffic that travels around those communities and asthma. I'm trying to remember the study now, but there was a study, I want to say it was maybe 3 or 4 years ago, that looked at incidence of asthma with children who lived in suburbs where there was hardly no traffic around their home, and then children who lived in densely populated areas that also had high traffic around. So my concern for this would be if it is contributing at all to some of the illnesses that made people susceptible, and the results were more fatal for COVID-19. It's probably something we should look into. I'm concerned because as we keep talking about the environment, it's not just the air, but it's what it does to the people. So I'd be curious to know, and you may not have this information, but I'd be curious to know if this were to pass, is there a cost avoidance that we could claim or reclaim and then use that someplace else on healthcare? Does that make sense to you?
Thank you, Chair Harris. To you and through you to Senator Spearman.
You can go directly, Senator Orenshaw.
Oh, thank you. Senator Spearman, there's a couple of websites, EPA websites I've looked at in my research on this bill that talk about the connection between modifying or bypassing the muffler exhaust and poor emissions control and air pollution. I don't know how much might contribute to asthma or other respiratory problems that people might have. My guess is there probably would be if cars are polluting more than they should under our current EPA guidelines. I think the bill is carefully crafted, the original bill, to make sure that any fine would be a civil fine. It's not a criminal offense, and it's not considered a moving violation. Certainly the California statutory scheme that Mr. Robinson talked about as being a good model, I believe that model does away with any fines and just gives the right to repair, or there's the possible inability to re-register the car if the muffler exhaust system is not brought back to something that's allowable under California law. And that's certainly something I think is a good model, a good compromise. But I can't quantify how much air pollution or health effects might be related to this, but I think it certainly contributes. And I think that the the more we can do to make sure the cars are compliant with the emission standards, the better I think we all are.
Thank you.
So I guess my question circles around, is there already a violation of law that occurs when you modify your vehicle and circumvent the smog system?
Thank you, Chair Harris. From what I've researched under the NRS, I'm not aware of one. And please, Chief Decker or Mr. Robinson, if I'm incorrect, please correct me, but I'm not aware of one. Perhaps under federal law, under EPA guidelines, there might be something, but.
J.D. Decker, for the record, Chief of Compliance Enforcement Division. To you, Chair Harris, there is currently a violation of state law and federal law if an emission system that comes from the factory on a vehicle is modified to bypass or defeat any emission control device. There isn't anything that relates to sound, so for enforcement, the Compliance Enforcement Division and other law enforcement agencies are looking primarily for vehicles where we can prove at this point in time a criminal violation. So if the vehicle's smoking, we know that's illegal. The standard of proof on an administrative citation, like Senator Orenshaw is included in this, is a preponderance. So if you see a vehicle, it's outrageously loud, you can write an administrative citation and take it through the administrative process where the person has 30 days or 45 days to fix or whatever it is and can get it fixed at an emissions lab. That is currently how we process emissions violators. So vehicles that we suspect by 51% of the evidence have bypassed or defeated their emission control devices because it is a violation. Thank you.
All right. Are there any other questions? Senator Hammond, did you want to jump in since you've just arrived? Do you have any questions before we go to testimony?
No, I was just curious as to what they were smoking. Cars are smoking what?
Well, I think they're Senator Hammond, I believe they're putting out a lot of smoke, oftentimes because the muffler exhaust system has been bypassed or deleted, and hopefully this bill will cure that problem, make the air a lot cleaner, and lead to less smokers out on the road.
Totally agree. Okay, wanted to make sure.
All right. Any other questions quickly? Seeing none, BPS, if you could please go ahead and open up the line for testimony in support of Senate Bill 315.
Thank you, Chair. Callers, if you would like to testify in support of SB 315, please press star 9 now to enter the queue. Will the caller with the last 3 digits of 742 please state and spell your name for the record? You may begin.
My name is Emily Walsh, EMILYWALSH, and I appear today on behalf of the Nevada Conservation League in support of SB 315. Studies have shown that modifying or tampering with exhaust systems makes it more likely that those vehicles will fail smog tests. The number one contributor to pollution in our state is the transportation sector, and we are supporting other efforts this session to get a handle on vehicle pollution. This bill would be a good addition to those efforts. We thank the chair and the sponsor for bringing this forward. Thank you.
Will the next caller with the last 3 digits of 957 please state and spell your name for the record? You may begin.
My name is Greg Esposito, ESPOSITO, testifying in support of this bill. I appreciate how everyone's been focused on the pollution issue of this. I want to bring it slightly more into a human perspective. Imagine you're a parent, had a rough day, been going since 6 a.m., and your time of solitude is going to be when you put your kids down for a nap. And you finally got them down for a nap. You got a little bit of time to do the bills or even just sit on the couch for a few minutes. And then one of these cars drives through your neighborhood and drives down the street, and your kids wake up. And that time that you needed to regroup and be a better parent throughout the rest of the day is gone. Now, when one of these cars drives down the street, it's not just one house that they invade. It's every house on the street, hundreds of houses if the street's long enough. And I'm not exaggerating here. Those cars invade our houses with no good reason. There's no community standard that is improved by this one person wanting to act out their fast and furious fantasies. Okay, we regulate when construction crews can begin work because of noise, and that is a beneficial. That has a community benefit to doing road work. But yet, these people, as individuals, because they decide that they want to disrupt the solitude and sanctuary of a neighborhood, they get to do it, and everybody else has to suffer. One more anecdotal evidence, and I care for women who have PTSD, and you don't know anger until you've been having a pleasant day with a person you care for, at home that has PTSD, and suddenly one of these cars goes by, and that noise jars them, and now they're not going to have such a pleasant afternoon. Now their day is ruined because people who have trauma, PTSD, they get triggered by loud noises like that. And I've seen it happen. I've had it happen to my loved ones. So just because one person decides they want to have a loud car, everybody gets affected. There's plenty of cases in statute where that's not legal, where that's already been addressed. And it's time to address these vehicles that are disrupting people's lives. Thank you for your time.
Will the next caller with the last three digits of 938 please state and spell your name for the record? You may begin.
Good afternoon, Chair Harris and members of the committee. For the record, my name is Ariel Edwards, Arielle, EDWARDS, on behalf of the City of North Las Vegas, testifying in support of Senate Bill 315. The City of North Las Vegas supports this measure and thanks the bill sponsor for bringing it forward. Thank you for your time and consideration today.
If there are any additional callers who would like to testify in support of SB 315, please press star 9 now to enter the queue. Chair Harris, at this time there are no additional callers wishing to give testimony in support.
Okay, let's go ahead and move to those who'd like to testify in opposition.
Thank you, Chair. Callers, if you would like to testify in opposition to SB 315, please press star 9 now to enter the queue. Once again, if you would like to testify in opposition to SB 315, please press star 9 now to enter the queue. Chair, at this time, it appears no callers are wishing to give a testimony in opposition to the bill.
Okay, let's go ahead and move to those in the neutral position.
Callers, if you would like to give a testimony in the neutral position for SB 315, please press star 9 now to enter the queue. Once again, if you would like to give a neutral testimony for SB 315, please press star 9 now. Chair Harris, the public line is open and working. However, there are no callers wishing to give a neutral testimony.
All right, we'll go ahead and close out the testimony then, and I'll kick it back to you, Senator Orenshaw, if you'd like to make any closing comments.
Chair Harris, members of the committee, thank you so much for hearing Senate Bill 315. This legislation is important for our constituents' quality of life and for air quality in our great state. I certainly have learned a lot about the issue since working on this bill, and I believe that there is a way to protect automotive enthusiasts who are trying to be responsible, yet also strike a balance so that our neighborhoods are protected and our air is protected, but that we are trying to make sure that modifications above a certain decibel level and bypassing or deleting the muffler exhaust system would not be permitted. And I believe that the model in California that I spoke about, that I believe Mr. Robinson has emailed the committee about, is a good model. I do appreciate the committee's time. Thank you very much for hearing this bill.
All right, thank you. With that, we'll go ahead and close the hearing on Senate Bill 315. I see we have Assemblywoman Peters with us to present SCR 8 and SJR 12. So I hope the PUC doesn't mind, but we will go slightly out of order and allow her to present her bill so she can get on with her business of the day. Assemblywoman Peters, welcome to the Senate Growth and Infrastructure Committee. I'll now open up the hearing on SCR 8.
Thank you, Chair. And I have my co-presenter on here. Thank you, Chair and committee members. For the record, I'm Assemblywoman Sarah Peters, representing Assembly District 24 in Reno. I'm here to present Senate Concurrent Resolution 8 today for your consideration. This measure is a result of the work accomplished by the Legislative Committee for the Review and Oversight of the Tahoe Regional Planning Agency and the Marlette Lake Water System during the most recent interim. Those familiar with the work of the committee, which receives input from the Tahoe Regional Planning Agency and the Tahoe Transportation District, are aware of the safety and economic problems associated with congestion along roadways, concerns about greenhouse gas emissions and other stormwater runoff pollution, decreasing the lake's clarity, and infrastructure that is due for replacement. Simply building more roadways in the area surrounding Lake Tahoe is not an economically or environmentally viable solution to address the problems of traffic congestion. With an estimated 25% increase in visitation by 2035, which for that basin is a huge amount, transportation around the Lake Tahoe area will become an increasingly important issue to address and a more difficult problem to solve the longer we wait. Having lived in this area all of my life, I can attest to the impact that congestion has had on the visitation capacity for the lake. My family goes much less today than we did previously. When I was a child, we would go a couple of times every summer and not have to be back to back with people on the roads or on the beaches. Senate Concurrent Resolution 8 requests that the existing bi-state working group and on transportation work collaboratively to develop a list of transportation priorities and projects for the Lake Tahoe Basin to be accomplished over the next 5 years or more. This list will be presented at the committee's first meeting during the 2021-2022 legislative interim. We are requesting that it include an assessment of the costs and benefits of each project in protecting and enhancing the ecosystem of the Lake Tahoe Basin, that it coincide with both Nevada and California's goals, benchmarks, and targets for addressing climate change, and that it identify potential funding recommendations and any equity barriers resulting from these recommendations. Additionally, we would like them to look at other barriers, both monetary and non-monetary, to implementing an effective transportation system on the Lake Tahoe Basin. Transportation issues in the Tahoe Basin aren't going away without creative. I'm available for questions at this point.
All right. Does the committee have any questions for Assemblywoman Peters or Mr. Lawrence? Wow. All right. Lucky day. Senator Pickard? No? Okay.
I'm happy to ask one if you want.
No, thank you. Just double checking that everything is working over there.
It'll start with, do we really need this? But I understand the desire, so no questions. Thank you.
Great. We'll go ahead then and turn to testimony in support of SCR 8.
Thank you, Chair. Callers, if you would like to testify in support of SCR 8, please press star 9 now to enter the queue. Will the caller with the last three digits of 742 please slowly state and spell your name for the record? You may begin.
My name is Emily Walsh, Emilywalsh, and I appear today on behalf of the League to Save Lake Tahoe in support of SCR 8. Increasing traffic in the Lake Tahoe Basin has negative impacts on the visitor experience and quality of life of residents. Most importantly, though, the pollution from these cars impacts the lake clarity and quality of air. The League has been involved in a discussion on transportation improvements for a number of years, and our executive director has served on the bi-state working group. We support the continued efforts by the two states to craft real transportation solutions that will reduce vehicle miles traveled in the basin and protect the lake. Thank you.
Will the caller with the last three digits of 469 please state and spell your name for the record? You may begin.
Good afternoon. I'm Carl Hasty, Carlhasty, and I'm the district manager for the Tahoe Transportation District, a bi-state special district. Appreciate the opportunity to testify in support of this resolution. This item is important, and we appreciate the legislature's support in helping Tahoe arrive at the action it needs to take to make serious advancements in transportation. In the 90s, the big emphasis for transportation at the lake was to address the retrofit of roadways for water quality treatment and the protection of lake clarity. We solved that then with a tremendous partnership effort at the private, local, state, and federal sector levels. Today, what we face is climate and heavy visitation via the private vehicle. It is time for Tahoe to tackle this issue with the multimodal approach articulated in the Bi-State Compact. It is time to arrive at agreement on what needs to be accomplished and how it gets funded. This resolution is a supportive statement to stakeholders, encouraging us to arrive at those agreements, to articulate the needs, and to articulate the obstacles. I'm happy to report that the stakeholders at Tahoe are already at work on this, and we look forward to working with the committee for the review and oversight of the Tahoe Regional Planning Agency and the Marlette Lake Water System in the 2021-22 legislative interim session. Thank you.
Will the caller with the last three digits of 070 please state and spell your name for the record? You may begin.
Yes, thank you. I am Julie Reagan, spelled Julie, Reagan, Regan, and I'd like to thank Chair Harris, members of the committee, and the public for allowing me to speak in support of this resolution. I am the Chief of External Affairs and Deputy Director of the Tahoe Regional Planning Agency, and today I am speaking on behalf of TRPA to support SCR 8. TRPA would like to thank Assemblywoman Peters for bringing this item before you today, as well as the leadership of Senator Ratty and other members of TRPA's Legislative Oversight Committee for working through transportation issues during the interim session, as the preceding member of my team here in Tahoe, Carl Hasty, just suggested. As you know, Lake Tahoe is a backyard for northern Nevada's growing population, and the COVID-19 pandemic demonstrated the importance of public recreational opportunities for the region. While many resort destinations were empty because of COVID closures, Lake Tahoe's beaches, trails, and roadways were crowded with visitors seeking refuge in the great outdoors. Congested hotspots around the Tahoe Basin underscored the vital need for improved transportation infrastructure to enhance safety, environmental protection, and economic vitality. Acting in our capacity as a federally designated metropolitan planning organization, or MPO, TRPA's governing board is scheduled to vote in April this month on the update of the Regional Transportation Plan. The plan calls for investment in transportation projects to improve transit, trails technology, and community corridors around the basin. A bi-state consultation working group is actively engaged in driving consensus around funding solutions to implement this plan. Thank you for your continued support for Lake Tahoe and for considering our comments in support of this resolution before you. Thank you.
If there are any additional callers who would like to testify in support of SCR 8, please press star 9 now to enter the queue. Chair Harris, at this time, there are no additional callers wishing to give testimony in support.
All right, let's go and move to testimony in opposition.
Certainly, Chair. Callers, if you would like to testify in opposition to SCR 8, please press star 9 now to enter the queue. Once again, callers, if you would like to testify in opposition to SCR 8, please press star 9 now to enter the queue. Chair Harris, at this time, there are no callers wishing to testify in opposition to SCR 8.
All right, let's move to those who are testifying in the neutral position.
Callers, if you would like to testify in a neutral position for SCR 8, please press star 9 now to enter the queue. Once again, callers, if you would like to testify in a neutral position for SCR 8, please press star 9 now. Chair Harris, at this time, there are no callers wishing to give a neutral testimony.
Okay. We'll close out testimony, and I'll go ahead and kick it back to you, Assemblywoman Peters, if you'd like to make any closing comments on SCR 8.
Thank you. I'm glad that we could keep that short and sweet for you all this week. I just want to say that I appreciate all of the callers in support. I know that the team, Assemblywoman Peters for the record, I know that the team in the Lake Tahoe Basin has been really working hard to come up with solutions for this large and some would say problem for an area that's so beautiful and pristine that we'd like to keep that way while also addressing equity. And I just want to say that the interim committee was presented with an option that became unviable due to the budget issues related to that pandemic, which is why we decided to request this continued effort despite the financial challenges, because the issues of transit and transportation and the related social, economic, and environmental impacts continue to need our attention and creativity. I want to thank the committee members for your time today, and I urge you to support this important measure to ensure Lake Tahoe remains pristine and accessible destination for tourists and locals alike.
All right, with that, we will close the hearing on SCR 8 and open the hearing on SJR 12, and welcome back, Assemblywoman Peters.
Thank you. This has been my favorite place today so far. Good afternoon, committee members. For the record, I am Assemblywoman Sarah Peters, representing Assembly District 24 in Reno. I'm here to present Senate Joint Resolution 12 today for the committee's consideration. Similar to other measures I presented before, the other measure I presented before this committee, Senate Joint Resolution 12 is a result of the work accomplished by the Legislative Committee for the Review and Oversight of the Tahoe Regional Planning Agency and the Marlette Lake Water System during the most recent interim, which we unanimously supported introducing this measure. The revitalization of the 3-mile section of the Tahoe East Shore Trail concluded in 2019 and attracted more than 1,000 daily visitors. As those who live in the area may have already appreciated, the improvements to summer transit services and parking availability has already reduced parking along the side of the road and the subsequent safety issues that may arise from on-street parking. I did also get to experience this last year, and it really has made a huge difference. Senate Joint Resolution 12 recognizes and expresses the priority of the timely completion of the Tahoe East Shore Trail Extension Project, which is slated to begin Phase 2 construction in 2022 and conclude in 2026, pending funding availability. This project began as collaborative efforts between 13 local, state, and federal agencies and resulted in the 2013 State Route 28 National Scenic Byway Corridor Management Plan. In addition to parking spaces and improved transit options, the project will ensure that all can enjoy the stunning scenery by making trails ADA compliant. It will continue making safety improvements to Highway 28, environmental improvements to the surrounding area, and improving amenities for visitors. The Incline Village General Improvement District, or the IVGID, effluent or wastewater pipeline is over 50 years old and in need of replacement. Pending approval of the IVGID, or from that improvement district, I apologize, the environmental analysis for the Tahoe East Shore Trail Extension Project may be include co-location of this pipeline, which may save on construction costs and prevent having to close the highway in order to perform repairs, as the pipeline is presently located underneath the highway. The Tahoe East Shore Trail Extension Project has raised over $12 million in public grants and funding and over $1 million in private donations so far, which may be used to meet matching fund requirements. In addition to requesting the 81st Nevada Legislature's support of for the priority of the project, SJR 12 urges the United States Congress to provide the federal funding necessary for implementing the remaining elements of the State Route 28 National Scenic Byway Corridor Management Plan. Completion of this plan will provide additional safety improvements, parking, transit stops, emergency pullouts, visitor amenities, and environmental improvements, in addition to offering a potential opportunity for the IVGID to conserve resources while replacing critical infrastructure that is at the end of its useful life. With the recent announcement of the federal infrastructure plan to invest $2 trillion in America's infrastructure, SJR 12 could not be more timely. With me today is Jim Lawrence, Deputy Director for the Department of Conservation and Natural Resources, who has additional information to share concerning this measure. I'm available for questions after his statements.
Mr. Lawrence, welcome. Please go ahead and state your name for the record.
Thank you, Chair Harris. For the record, my name is Jim Lawrence, Jim Lawrence. I have the pleasure of serving as a Deputy Director for the Nevada Department of Conservation and Natural Resources, and in that capacity, I do represent the department on the Tahoe Regional Planning Agency Governing Board. I'm mindful of your time, and I know which week it is, so I won't take too much of your time. I will add a little bit to Assemblywoman Peters' testimony. She did a great job of really laying it all out and the challenges we have here. But real briefly, the East Shore, as it's called up at Lake Tahoe, it's really an 11-mile stretch between, at the south end, the intersection at Spooner Summit, the intersection of Highway 50 and 28, and the north end, Incline Village. That 11-mile stretch on the Nevada side is probably our most problematic transportation challenge that we have in the Tahoe Basin on the Nevada side. It is extremely popular, and it is only gaining in more popularity. I've been working in the basin on basin issues for about 20 years now, and I just see the increasing challenges up there. We have a situation where there's really no coordinated parking. People are just driving around back and forth trying to find shoulder parking, or they're queuing up hours before the opening of Sand Harbor, which is blocking commuter traffic going back and forth between the South Shore and the North Shore. So we have a vision. There is a corridor management plan that's signed on by about 15 stakeholders, because the land management up there, it's a county issue, it's a state issue, it's a federal issue, and it's a private issue because a lot of this is recreation activities. We have a lot of success. As Assemblywoman Peters said, we got the first 3 miles of the East Shore Trail done. It's extremely popular. It is great for outdoor recreation. But if we're really going to make a change regarding transportation, we need that multi-use path for the entire 11 miles, along with the parking, node parking, so we can remove the off-highway parking, and we need a shuttle transit service in place. So people can park on one end, and a shuttle can take them, up and down to the beaches that they want to go to. And it's absolutely critical. We can't widen the road in the basin. There's just nowhere to be built out. And I would say one of the challenges we have with transportation in the basin regarding recreation, there's not a real good model for us to look at across the country. I'm not aware of any place as beautiful as Tahoe, as popular as Tahoe, but still has 2 states, 5 counties, 1 incorporated city, a federal agency as the biggest land manager. So it's the coordination and collaboration that is really essential, whether it's for the bi-state or for the Seashore Trail here. So we do think that there's opportunities coming up with possible federal spending packages, and most of the parking lots and most of the trail work that's remaining is on Forest Service land. So supporting this resolution, I think, would be very helpful to securing some additional federal funds needed to get this important project completed. So thank you. That concludes my testimony. Thank you for the time, and I'm happy to answer any questions.
All right, with that, are there any questions for Assemblywoman Peters or Mr. Lawrence? Seeing none, we will go ahead and turn to testimony in support. BPS, if you could go ahead and pull the line.
Thank you, Chair. Callers, if you would like to testify in support of SJR 12, please press star 9 now to enter the queue. Will the caller with the last 3 digits of 742 please state and spell your name for the record? You may begin now.
My name is Emily Walsh, EMILYWALSH, and I appear today on behalf of the League to Save Lake Tahoe in support of SJR 12. The bill presenters have done an excellent job of discussing the process and the outcomes of the State Route 28 Corridor Management Plan. The East Shore Trail has already become the crown jewel of the trail system in the Lake Tahoe Basin, and it is a great alternative to the automobile on the east side of the lake. We support efforts to complete this trail system. Thank you.
Will the caller with the last 3 digits of 469 please state and spell your name for the record? You may begin.
Good afternoon, Chair Harris, members of the committee. This is Carl Hasty, CARLHASTY. I'm the district manager for the Tahoe Transportation District, and I'm here to speak in support of the resolution today. We need all types of funding sources to complete the project improvements plan for SR 28. The district has led the corridor implementation planning and project efforts for SR 28. We are in the process right now of submitting requests to the House delegation for SR 28, and the resolution here before you today is exactly the kind of support that we need to show that the interest and the value of these improvements are for the state and for Tahoe. This helps us in the competition for precious federal dollars. So we'll respectfully ask for your support and consideration of this resolution. Thank you.
Will the next caller with the last 3 digits of 070 please state and spell your name for the record? You may begin.
Yes, thank you. Hello. I'm Julie Reagan, spelled JULIEREGAN. Thank you again, Chair Harris, members of the committee. I'm the Chief of External Affairs and Deputy Director of the Tahoe Regional Planning Agency, and speaking today on behalf of TRPA in support of SJR 12. The Tahoe East Shore Trail is one of the highest priority environmental improvement program projects in the entire basin and is also part of the Transportation Action Plan identified by the Bi-State Consultation on Transportation. TRPA supports this resolution and is also urging, along with TTD, the federal support of this project from our federal delegation. Thank you for the opportunity to speak.
If there are any additional callers who would like to give testimony in support of SJR 12, please press star 9 now to enter the queue. Chair Harris, at this time, there are no additional callers wishing to give testimony in support.
Okay, thank you. Let's go ahead and open it up for those who'd like to testify in opposition to SJR 12.
Certainly, Chair. Callers, if you would like to testify in opposition to SJR 12, please press star 9 now to enter the queue. Once again, callers, if you would like to testify in opposition to SJR 12, please press star 9 now. Chair, the public line is open and working. However, there are no callers wishing to testify in opposition to SJR 12.
Okay, thank you. Let's go ahead and move to those who'd like to testify in the neutral position.
Callers, if you would like to testify in a neutral position for SJR 12, please press star 9 now. Once again, callers, if you would like to testify in a neutral position for SJR 12, please press star 9 now to enter the queue. Chair Harris, at this time, there are no callers wishing to give a neutral testimony.
All right, I'll turn it back to you, Assemblywoman Peters, if you'd like to make any closing comments.
Thank you. I just would like to thank my co-presenter and the committee for your time today, and I urge you to support this measure. This measure may ensure that the good work that's already underway in the basin does not stop now, and that the Lake Tahoe area will continue to be a welcome and beautiful place for all visitors. Thank you, guys.
All right, thanks for joining us. Members, given where we are at this time in the session, I would entertain a motion to adopt Senate Concurrent Resolution 8 and Senate Joint Resolution 12.
Madam Chair, I would make that motion, please, that we approve both of those.
Thank you so much. Do we have a second?
I'll second that.
Thank you, Senator Hammond. Any discussion on that motion? Seeing none, will the secretary go ahead and call the roll?
Senator Brooks?
Yes.
Senator Hammond?
Yes.
Senator Pickard?
Yes.
Senator Spearman? Chair Harris?
Yes, and I'll ask that we hold that open for Senator Spearman to record her vote when she returns. Thank you so much. We will, if I didn't already, officially close the hearing on SJR 12, and I will open the hearing on SB 405 and welcome Mr. Weir from the Public Utilities Commission. Go ahead and begin when you're ready.
Thank you, Chair Harris. I'm actually going to hand it over to my colleague, Stephanie Mullen, the agency's executive director.
Ms. Mullen, welcome. Go ahead and start when you're ready. We can't hear you. How
about now?
Very, very low. So I can hear you, but it's like very low.
Okay, I will project. How's that?
Not even close.
Yeah, it's not the projecting. You know what we might have you do is call in and use the audio on the phone. The committee will be in recess for just a moment to the call of the chair. And I'll ask Mr. Mays and Mr. Dombrowski, either one, to jump on and assist you in calling in.
All right, Chair, we are unmuted, and Ms. Mullen, you may begin.
I apologize for that, Chair Harris, Vice Chair Brooks, and members of the committee. For the record, I am Stephanie Mullen, Executive Director for the Public Utilities Commission of Nevada. With me today is Garrett Weir, General Counsel for the PUCN. We are here today to present SB 405, which is intended to ensure that the PUCN and the Attorney General's Bureau of Consumer Protection are able to fund their legislatively approved budgets. SB 405 proposes to amend NRS 704.033 relating to the PUCN's and BCP's authority to levy and collect an annual regulatory assessment, or mill assessment, from all PUCN regulated entities. The annual mill assessment is an annual calculation of a mill amount, which is 1/10 of 1 cent, levied on each dollar of gross operating revenue derived from the intrastate operations of these companies. Existing law, which was passed in 1981, caps the mill assessment rate at which utility service providers are assessed at 3.5 mills for the PUCN and 0.75 mills for the BCP. The proposal before you today seeks to remove the outdated, unnecessary, and arbitrary cap and authorize the PUCN and BCP to set the mill assessment to a rate sufficient to fund the legislatively approved budget of each agency. I would like to reiterate that regardless of what the mill cap is set at or whether it is removed, the legislature will continue to have the same oversight of the PUCN's budget as the legislature does now. In fact, this bill would actually restrict the PUCN's authority by not allowing us to set a rate that would generate more revenue than necessary to fund the legislatively approved amount. The PUCN proposes to remove the mill assessment cap for several reasons. The cap, as mentioned, established in 1981, did not contemplate reductions in assessable revenues due to major changes to the utility landscape, such as telecommunication customers transitioning from traditional landline service to mobile and internet-based services that are not accessible, or prolonged reductions of natural gas prices. These reductions in accessible revenues, combined with the potential economic effects of unpredictable circumstances such as the COVID-19 pandemic, create uncertainty as to whether the existing law will provide adequate funding for the BCP and PUCN to perform their statutory duties. And regarding statutory duties, the PUCN performs critical functions ensuring safe, reliable, and affordable utility service throughout the state. A strong and healthy PUCN protects the health and safety of Nevadans and also saves ratepayers money. Over the last decade, rates have been steady or have declined, making Nevada one of the lowest rate states in the country. An adequately funded PUCN ensures resource adequacy, so Nevada never experiences events like what we recently saw happen in Texas, where its legislature restructured its PUC to have less authority and oversight. A strong and healthy PUCN also ensures that state policy objectives are being met. We are proud to implement and enforce policies that promote renewable energy and reductions in carbon emissions, and we can only continue to carry out these duties in an efficient and effective manner if we have adequate funding and staff. As I previously mentioned, the bill mandates that the assessment be calculated to provide for collection of only the amounts necessary to fund the agency's legislatively approved budgets for carrying out their respective duties related to public utility service in Nevada. The existing cap is an unnecessary ceiling against overspending because the budgets for the PUCN and the BCP must be approved by the legislature. The PUCN's budget is also subject to the Executive Budget Act and the governor's review and approval. Removal of the mill cap ensures that the PUCN and the BCP will have adequate funding moving forward. The PUCN is not eligible to access any of the state's reserve funds from general fund or to receive any financial assistance. The ability to respond to the regulated entity's revenue fluctuations is an important component to ensure the financial health of the agency. We want to be able to fund and carry out the important policies the legislature passes in any given session, as we have been. And as you all know, there are very few assumptions that are made when building the budget. Information used to create a budget is based off actual expenditures from the base year. The budget submitted in August prior to a legislative session start the following February does not account for potential cost of living increases, retirement or healthcare increases, or any of the numerous utility-related bills that may be passed for our agency to implement and enforce. These variables that are introduced once a budget is submitted and closed can have unintended consequences on self-funded agencies not eligible for general fund assistance. The removal of the cap would allow the PUCN and BCP to fund legislatively approved cost of living increases, healthcare adjustments, and to implement any fiscal notes following the appropriate approvals of the legislature. The mill assessment is set in June of each year. Unlike when a budget is built, setting the mill assessment rate is full of assumptions and best guesses. The PUCN must reassess the mill assessment annually to adjust what it will collect based on the previous year's utility revenues because public utility companies' revenues fluctuate from year to year. It is important to also note that the mill assessment funds both the PUCN and the BCP, and the PUCN feels it is very important that the BCP has the funding needed to participate in any PUCN case in which the BCP deems necessary to represent residential ratepayers and other consumer interests. The PUCN proposes to remove the mill cap and not set it at an arbitrary new number in recognition that the utilities the PUCN regulates are changing quickly, as are those utilities' assessable revenues. And as mentioned, there is still the same legislative oversight of the PUCN's budget, regardless of what the cap is set at or if it is removed. The PUCN has been actively working with stakeholders on SB 405 and will continue to work with stakeholders on this bill. In conclusion, I want to thank you for your time today, and I am available for any questions, as is our General Counsel, Garrett Weir. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any questions from committee members? Senator Hammond.
Got to unmute myself there. So good to see you again, Ms. Mullins. I know we've discussed the bill, and I'm grateful that I was able to talk to you a little bit about it before you had the hearing today. Just out of curiosity, you had said that you had set that currently the caps are at 3.5 mil and 0.75 mil, as they're currently stated here. And I know. Have you reached those caps? And is that one of the reasons that you want to get rid of it? Is you've reached those caps and now you still can't fund the budget as we put it out there? Is that one of the reasons? I know that yesterday we may have discussed a couple other things too, and I understand that maybe you can explain to us and put it on the record that one of the other things that you're trying to get at is other agencies don't have the same sort of restrictions that you do. And so therefore lifting this would help you be basically comparable to everybody else. But I was just wondering if you've actually reached these caps, and that's one of the biggest obstacles as well. Given the fact that a lot of the other agencies out there are basically reducing their expenditures or being asked to reduce their budgets. So if you could just explain to me where we're at with the cap and the genesis, I guess, behind the overall, what is the goal, and that is, I think, to be comparable to everybody else. Is that correct?
Chair Harris, through you to Senator Hammond. For the record, Stephanie Mullen. Yeah, thank you for that question. While our agency, the Public Utilities Commission, has not currently reached its cap, the budget submitted for this biennium, the cap is set at 3, or I'm sorry, our assessment rate is set at 3 to fund our agency for the upcoming biennium. I do know that the Bureau of Consumer Protection has hit its cap and is currently at its cap at 0.75 and has been for at least as long as I can remember over the last 6 years of my tenure at the Public Utilities Commission. And then for the second question, yes, as far as we can tell, for other state agencies, we are the only agency that is both subject to the executive budget process and the legislative approval process, as well as we have this cap, arbitrary cap, that once our budget is submitted, approved, and set, we then need to make sure that there's space available to us to assess interstate gross revenues for utilities to fund. And I hope that answers your question.
It does, and thank you very much for kind of making that more clear. I think it's important to understand both of those things, right? You're not at your cap, but then again, it may not be about being at the cap. It may be about parity with other agencies and making sure that you have the right funds. I think it's important to put that on the record.
Thank you, Senator Hammond. Any additional questions from committee members? Okay, seeing none, we will go ahead and turn to the lines for testimony in support of Senate Bill 405.
Thank you, Chair. Callers, if you would like to testify in support of Senate Bill 405, please press star 9 now to enter the queue. Will the caller with the last 3 digits of 528 please state and spell your name for the record? You may begin now.
Madam Chair, members of the committee, for the record, my name is Barry Gold, G-O-L-D, and I'm the Director of Government Relations for AARP Nevada. We've heard that this arbitrary cap went into place in 1981. Wow. Let's just say a lot of things have changed since 1981. I'm aware that both agencies have increased caseload, and we really need to make sure that they're able to oversee utility companies and protect consumers. Over the years that I have worked with both of these agencies, AARP has developed a solid working relationship with both the PUCN and the Attorney General's Bureau of Consumer Protection, and we often, I repeat, we often work collaboratively, whether it be on regulations or legislation. The best way to put it is both of these agencies pay close attention to the needs and issues affecting residential ratepayers, I'll say the little guy, and that's really important that they do that. So for those reasons, AARP, on behalf of our 345,000 members across the state, support SB 405 and urge the committee to pass this legislation to enable both of these agencies to continue to protect residential consumers. Thank you.
Will the caller with the last 3 digits of 742 please state and spell your name for the record? You may begin now.
My name is Emily Walsh, E-M-I-L-Y-W-A-L-S-H, and I appear today on behalf of the Nevada Conservation League in support of SB 405. The Governor's Climate Initiative created a roadmap for our state to meet our carbon reduction goals, and many of the policies contemplated in that plan and in this legislative session will require the Public Utilities Commission to investigate and solve some very difficult issues. The PUCN is absolutely the venue for these conversations to occur, and the Commission is the regulator for our state's utilities that will be responding to this policy direction. Effective regulation that protects the consumer, the environment, and utility shareholders isn't free. We support this bill so that the PUCN has the tools they need to do their job. Thank you.
Will the next caller with the last 3 digits of 450 please state and spell your name for the record? You may begin.
Chair Harris and Vice Chair Brooks and members of the committee, my name is Angie Dykema, A-N-G-I-E-D-Y-K-E-M-A, and I'm calling in today representing the Southwest Energy Efficiency Project to voice support for SB 405. As many of you have probably seen from some of the energy bills already heard in this committee and still yet to be heard, the world of energy is very complex, and it's important to recognize that the regulatory environment in which the PUC operates has also become increasingly complex over the years. The original cap of 3 mils, which was set in 1999, when the PUC was not even a part of the executive branch like it is now, where it must go through the normal budgetary process of any executive branch agency with approval from the legislature. Over the past 2 decades, the number of policies that have come before the PUC has grown, with issues ranging from rooftop solar and net metering to electric vehicles, and it's important to allow the PUC the ability to fund their legislatively approved budget in order to keep up with these matters and ensure they have the ability to hire the needed expertise to knowledgeably address these important matters. Thank you, and we urge your support for SB 405.
Will the next caller with the last three digits of 811 please state and spell your name for the record? You may begin.
Thank you, Madam Chair and members of the committee, for the opportunity to speak today. My name is Elspeth Cordua, C-O-R-D-U-A, and I'm here today representing the Sierra Club and our more than 40,000 members and supporters statewide. Sierra Club strongly urges this committee to support Senate Bill 405. We often find ourselves in front of the Public Utilities Commission and also working with the Bureau of Consumer Protection in various proceedings. We fully support both the PUC and BCP increasing their funding to sufficiently fund the critically important duties of their offices. I urge the committee's support of SB 405. Thank you.
Will the caller with the last three digits of 416 please state and spell your name for the record? You may begin.
Thank you, Chair Harris, Vice Chair Brooks, and members of the committee. For the record, I am Ernest Figueroa. That's ERNEST-FIGUEROA. I am the Consumer Advocate and Chief Deputy Attorney General and the Executive Head of the Bureau of Consumer Protection. The BCP supports SB 405. Our work before the Public Utilities Commission has increased over the number of years, as previously explained. We can use the additional resources to enhance and ensure adequate funding to protect our ratepayers in these complex utility proceedings. I urge you to support SB 405. Thank you very much, and that concludes my testimony.
Will the caller with the last three digits of 533 please state and spell your name for the record? You may begin.
Madam Chair and members of the committee, for the record, this is Dylan Sullivan, DYLAN-SULLIVAN. I'm here on behalf of the Natural Resources Defense Council. NRDC supports Senate Bill 405 for the same reasons that were articulated earlier by colleagues Emily Walsh, Angie Dykma, and Elspeth Cordua. We urge you to support this bill. Thank you.
If there are any additional callers who would like to testify in support of Senate Bill 405, please press *9 now to enter the queue. Chair Harris, at this time, there are no additional callers wishing to give testimony in support of SB 405.
Okay, let's go ahead and move to those who'd like to testify in opposition.
Thank you, Chair. Callers, if you would like to testify in opposition to SB 405, please press *9 now to enter the queue. Once again, callers, if you would like to testify in opposition to SB 405, please press *9 now to enter the queue. Chair Harris, at this time, the public line is open and working. However, there are no callers wishing to give testimony in opposition.
Okay, let's go ahead and move to those in the neutral position.
Callers, if you would like to give testimony in a neutral position for SB 405, please press *9 now to enter the queue. Will the caller with the last three digits of 081 please state and spell your name for the record? You may begin.
Good afternoon, Chair and members of the committee. This is Dylan Keith, Dylan Keith, Policy Analyst with the Vegas Chamber. The Chamber initially had concerns about the bill regarding transparency and oversight of how the mills tax would be handled with the proposed changes, but after discussions with the PUC, there will still be legislative oversight, so we are neutral on this bill. Thank you very much.
Will the next caller with the last three digits of 018 please slowly state and spell your name for the record? You may begin.
Thank you, Madam Chair, members of the committee. My name is Matt Morris, Mattmorris, for the record, representing Nevada Resort Association. We are neutral on Senate Bill 405. Our membership includes some of the largest ratepayers in Nevada who frequently appear before the Public Utilities Commission. And we recognize the important and expanding role of the PUC in utilities regulation and protecting the public interest. We also recognize the important role of the Attorney General's Bureau of Consumer Protection and the role that it plays in representing the interests of residential ratepayers in utility matters. While we agree that these agencies should be adequately funded, we are working with the bill sponsors to address concerns with lifting the mills cap under NRS 704. We look forward to continued collaboration and dialogue with the bill sponsor to address this concern. Thank you.
If there are any additional callers who would like to give a neutral testimony for SB 405, please press *9 now to enter the queue. Chair Harris, at this time, there are no additional callers wishing to give a neutral testimony.
Okay, thank you. I'll go ahead and turn it back to you, Ms. Mullen, if you'd like to make any closing comments.
Thank you, Chair Harris. I have no additional closing comments, but to thank you for your time today.
All right, thank you. With that, we'll close the hearing on Senate Bill 405. And again, given where we are in the session, I would entertain a motion to do pass Senate Bill 405.
Move do pass, Chair.
And do we have a second?
Second.
Second from Senator Hammond. Any discussion on the motion? Senator Pickard, yes.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I know you just asked if I was willing to move the bill, and I'm not able to lift it. I just want to say that originally, when I spoke to Ms. Mullen and to Mr. Weir, I expressed some concerns, and I still have those concerns, that where we seem to be shifting the burden from many different funding sources to fewer funding sources. And I think that might have an effect of concentrating the responsibility on fewer people. Now, they assured me that we're talking about the same population. If you're paying a bill for electricity, you're not paying a phone bill anymore, but you're probably still paying for electricity. Under the present circumstance, I'm okay with it. It doesn't sit right. So I just wanted to say that and hope that they're spot on correct and that Mr. Weir is smarter than he was in law school. So I'm kidding, of course. But I'm okay with this as it is. I'm just left a little uncomfortable with that. So just wanted to say that. But I'm prepared to support the measure out of committee.
All right, thank you. And Senator Pickard, I'll note for the record, a huge portion of the Public Utility Commission's job is to ensure that ratepayers are not unfairly and unduly burdened with their rates. And so I believe that that'll be at the forefront of their mind as they move forward.
And no one would know that better than their former counsel. Thank you. All
right, any other discussion on the motion? Seeing none, will the secretary please call the roll?
Senator Brooks?
Yes.
Senator Hammond?
Yes.
Senator Pickard?
Yes.
Senator Spearman? Chair Harris?
Yes. And again, I'd like to leave that open for Senator Spearman to record her vote when she arrives. Okay, we closed our hearing on Senate Bill 405. The last thing on our agenda is a work session, but we are still awaiting one of our members to return. And so we will be in a, oh, look at that. You put it out there and there she is. I love it. Senator Spearman coming through right on time.
Speak of an angel.
That's right. Thank you so much for joining us. We're going to go ahead and start, Ms. Scully, if we can, with Senate Bill 328. If you could just walk us through that very quickly.
Thank you, Chair Harris. For the record, Susan Scully with the Research Division of the Legislative Council Bureau. Before we begin on Senate Bill 328, I want to be sure that everyone has the revised version of the work session document and the revised amendment. It's posted on Nellis. The old one was taken down, and I did email all the members the revised version. I've checked with all of you except Senator Spearman, so if she could confirm she has the most recent version.
We're getting a thumbs up.
Okay, great. All right. This bill was sponsored by Senator Lang and heard in this committee on March 29th. Senate Bill 28 revises targets for energy storage capacity and requires electric utilities to include a plan for the achievement of those targets and sets forth the conditions under which the PUCN may waive or defer a target or elect not to adopt a target. The bill also adds certain qualifications in Chapter 624 governing contractors applicable to persons who install these systems. At the hearing, the bill sponsor submitted a proposed conceptual amendment which removed the specific energy storage targets in Section 1 and substituted a direction to the PUCN to reassess the current targets. After the hearing, the sponsor submitted a revision to the original conceptual amendment. That revision is attached, and it is a one-page document dated April 7th with 3 parts. The revision includes, for Section 3 of the bill, proposed language for reassessment of the energy storage targets in subsection 1, which is a minor clarification to the original conceptual amendment, but it also proposes the deletion of subsections 3 and 4 in Section 3 of the bill. The Second Amendment would carve out energy storage installations in connection with defined residential projects, so they would not be subject to the new certification requirements. And then number 3 provides an effective date for the new certification for commercial installations only. There is a fiscal note on file, and that concludes my summary of the bill. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Scully. Are there any questions, committee members? Okay, seeing none at this time, I will accept a motion to amend and do pass Senate Bill 328.
So moved.
Motion by Senator Spearman. Looks like we got a second from Vice Chair Brooks. Any discussion on the motion? Senator Pickard.
Madam Chair, just a brief comment. I'm supportive of the bill generally, but given the neutral testimony where a bunch of people said they needed to digest the amendments, and I haven't heard from them, so I'm not going to hold this up, but I do want to reserve my right to change if they come back with anything concerning. I don't think they will, but I just wanted to just put that on the record. Looks like Senator Lang may be trying to allay my fears here.
Senator Lang, please.
Great, thank you, Madam Chair. I'm Senator Pickard. We've had lots of conversations And the conversations of the people that spoke out against the bill predominantly dealt with residential. And that's why at this time we dropped residential and decided to concentrate on the commercial. So I think those fears are gone. And I think also we, instead of having the goals and specific goals, we tied it to the IRP report. And that seemed to make everyone feel, as long as we're doing the report, we might as well use what comes out of the report. And that made everyone feel much more comfortable with the language as well.
I appreciate that. Thank you very much.
You
And
bet.
I find you to be particularly trustworthy, so I'll just run with it.
Great, thank you.
All right, Senator Hammond, yes.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I hold the same reservations after having the hearing. Because of that, I guess the discussion over residential versus commercial, I understood Senator Lang's testimony just now, her trustworthiness notwithstanding. I'm just going to be, just a little hesitant. I'll support the measure now, but just kind of reserve my right to make sure I understand better after digesting this and going over some other folks as well. But good job. I appreciate the changes that came, and I'm ready to support it right now.
All right, with that, if the secretary could please call the roll.
Senator Brooks?
Yes.
Senator Hammond?
Yes.
Senator Pickard?
Yes.
Senator Spearman?
Yes.
Chair Harris?
Yes, motion passes unanimously. We will now move on to Senate Bill 59, and I'll turn it back over to you, Ms. Scully. FYI, I'll assign the floor statement of Senate Bill 328 to Senator Lang, the sponsor. Ms. Scully.
All right. Thank you, Madam Chair. Senate Bill 59 was sponsored by the committee on behalf of the Public Utilities Commission of Nevada and heard in this committee on February 17th. This bill makes minor modifications to the terminology and process for judicial review of a decision of the PUCN in order to more closely mirror the Nevada Administrative Procedures Act. The PUCN submitted proposed amendments prior to the hearing. Based at the testimony at the hearing, the PUCN worked with the Nevada Resort Association on further amendments, and the final proposed amendment is attached. It is a 2-page document dated April 5th. And before we go on, I would like to turn over the microphone to Eileen O'Grady, our legal counsel, to address the digest issue. Thank you.
Hi. I just wanted to point out that there's an error in both the title and the digest on this bill. The words "unless permitted by the court" should not have been included, as those are the last words that are in the digest as well as in the title, because the intent of this bill is that the court does not have the discretion to allow the filing of additional briefs. So that's an error, and we'll fix that.
All right, thank you, Ms. O'Grady. Ms. Scully, any further walkthrough of the bill? Okay, looks like we have a question from Senator Pickard, and I believe we have both Mr. Weir and Ms. Mullen on the line. Senator Pickard.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And not so much a question as a comment. I certainly appreciate Ms. Mullen and Mr. Weir and their willingness to debate this issue. I just can't get past the idea of robbing a judge who thinks they need more information the ability to get it. So I will be a no. I think it's a mistake to remove this discretion entirely from the court. Thank you.
Anyone else? Seeing none at this time, I will accept a motion to amend and do pass Senate Bill 59.
Amend, do pass, Chair.
Got a motion from Senator Brooks. Do we have a second?
Second.
Second from Senator Spearman. Any further discussion on the motion? Seeing none, will the secretary please call the roll?
Senator Brooks?
Yes.
Senator Hammond?
I'm a yes with the right to, with a reservation.
Senator Pickard,
No.
Senator Spearman,
Yes.
Chair Harris,
Yes. And with that, the motion passes. I will assign the floor statement to Senator Spearman. All right. Ms. Scully, I'll turn it back over to you to walk us through Senate Bill 288.
Thank you, Chair Harris. For the record, Susan Scully with the Research Division of the Legislative Council Bureau. Senate Bill 288 revises provisions relating to transportation network companies. It was sponsored by Senator Harris, heard in this committee on March 29th. This bill defines the term monitored autonomous vehicle as one with a safety engineer who is physically present in the vehicle when it is in operation. The bill authorizes TNCs, transportation network companies, to enter into agreement with a provider of monitored autonomous vehicles to provide services through the TNC. Unlike TNC, driver's safety engineer may be controlled by the MAV, if I can use the acronym, provider, and only the MAV provider may compensate the safety engineer. The TNC that has entered into an agreement must provide reports on crashes to the NTA, the Nevada Transportation Authority, maintain insurance, and maintain other records as spelled out in the bill. The NTA will compile a report on coverage limits and aggregated information on crashes to submit to the Legislative Commission and the Legislature in odd and even numbered years, respectively. The bill also prohibits a MAV provider from deceiving passengers or taking them to a different destination and requires them to be given a license plate before the passenger enters the vehicle. The Nevada Transportation Authority may only impose an administrative fine if the violation is unrelated to Chapter 482A, which governs autonomous vehicles. Also, local governments are prohibited from imposing a tax or fee on a monitored autonomous vehicle. The bill makes a number of other conforming changes to the NRS, incorporating all these changes. At the hearing, Motional Inc. submitted proposed amendments, and after the hearing, in consultation with the legal division, further amendments were discussed with the intent of facilitating the incorporation of the MAV concept into the existing transportation network company statutes. A conceptual amendment is attached, which is dated April 6th, and basically explains how the original provisions of the bill will be translated into the existing statutes. And if there are questions, there are others here better able to answer them than me.
Thank you, Ms. Scully. It does look like we have a question from Senator Pickard. I'll note that we have Mr. Walker on, as well as maybe hopefully he might be able to tag in Ms. O'Grady if things get too rough. Senator Pickard.
I hope they won't be too rough. We addressed this in the hearing, and I'm looking at the conceptual amendment, paragraph 3, and I'm wondering if we're maybe introducing some ambiguity again. During the hearing, the testimony was that the whatever we call them, the safety engineer, the monitor, whatever we want to call him, for purposes of liability, if one of these things gets in a wreck, I want to make sure that the other person in the wreck, if they're not at fault, is protected. And so they testified that they are, for all intents and purposes, the driver of the vehicle, because the designation driver is important. Under 3, it looks like the TNC is going to maintain the insurance coverage. But I don't know if that's not, grounds to circumvent the policy if the insurance company comes back and says, hey, that's not our employee. We're not responsible for them. This is not a covered incident. And now we've got somebody potentially without that kind of liability coverage that's required by law. So I want to make sure we have a very clear record here that the third party is going to be protected, and that whether it's the MAV or the TNC, that there's going to be proper insurance coverage in place and not something that can be skirted by the insurance company. I mean, insurance companies don't become the largest financial institutions in the world by paying a lot of claims. So I want to make sure they're protected.
Senator Pickard, I'll make one note for the record, and then I'll turn it over to Mr. Walker for further explanation. In current operations, TNCs mostly have their drivers as independent contractors, and so the employee relationship doesn't exist. And so anytime a TNC has insurance, that is kind of well established in practice. But
And that's typically, my understanding is that's typically an umbrella policy in case the driver, or in this case the independent contractor, is underinsured. So it keeps them out of trouble. But that's not the primary source of liability protection. And I want to make sure we're not creating a loophole that these guys are going to be on the hook.
Mr. Walker.
Thank you, Chair Harris. And thank you for the question, Senator Pickard. Matt Walker on behalf of Motional for the record. As the amendment indicates, we sort of came at the initial draft squeezing a round peg into or a square peg into a round hole in terms of the TNC making this service available and offering this service, when in fact the contractual relationship simply allows for the monitored autonomous vehicle service to have these monitored autonomous vehicle rides offered on the platform. Similarly, and as you were able to draw out on the record, in this case, the monitored autonomous vehicle service is going to perform the function and role of the driver in terms of the required insurance. And so I think that this amendment will much more cleanly capture that concept and ensure that the monitored autonomous vehicle service provides vehicle coverage for the vehicles it uses and offers on these platforms. Additionally, the policies, while similar in nature, will not be underwritten on a safety engineer by safety engineer basis, but will absolutely fully serve this function as they currently do with other drivers on the road under 706A. I think this will be a much cleaner construct once you see the final language, and appreciate you allowing me to make the record on that. And since I'm interrupting and chiming in, I just also wanted to add that that this amendment will allow us to address other things. So while where the original bill considered the TNC controlling and managing this safety engineer, this will more cleanly show the chain of custody of the folks employed by these types of services and their management by the monitored autonomous vehicle service provider, and also provide that whether it's for business, regulatory, or other safety reasons, the transition between 706A and 706B is going to be based on whether there's a monitored autonomous vehicle and safety engineer in the vehicle, and not the trigger under the previous iteration of the statute where the capabilities of the vehicle, whether it was a level 4 or level 5, were going to dictate whether it transitioned back and forth from 706A to 706B. So again, I think we're closing a lot of loopholes, and again, want to give my sincere appreciation to Asher Killian and the folks at LCB who had a long conversation with us over the weekend that allowed us to get where we are on this amendment today.
Thank you for that. I mean, this is because, and I think you hit on it, because we don't have the final language. I want to make sure the record's clear, and we'll be holding you to it. So thank you for that.
Any other questions? Seeing none, I'll entertain a motion to amend and do pass Senate Bill 288.
So move.
Motion from Senator Brooks.
Second.
Second from Senator Spearman. Any discussion on the motion? Seeing none, will the secretary please call the roll?
Senator Brooks?
Yes.
Senator Hammond?
Yes.
Senator Pickard?
Yes, with those reservations. Thank you.
Senator Spearman?
Yes.
Chair Harris?
Yes, motion passes unanimously. I will go ahead and kick it back to you, Ms. Scully, to walk us through Senate Bill 303.
Thank you, Chair Harris. This is Susan Scully, for the record, from the Research Division of the Legislative Counsel Bureau. We are on Senate Bill 303 relating to professions. It was sponsored by Senator Brooks, heard in this committee on April 5th. This bill addresses the regulation of contractors installing photovoltaic systems for residential use. The bill details qualifications required to perform installations of these systems and who may solicit or advise. Upon receipt of a down payment or a deposit of $1,000 or 10% of the aggregate contract price, whichever is less, the bill requires a contractor to begin work within 30 days of issuance of all permits unless the owner agrees to a different period. The bill also sets forth the required components of a contract for such installation, as well as provisions governing completion and payment schedules. It also authorizes the State Contractors Board to adopt regulations relating to the contents of a contract for work and standards for advertising. The bill also addresses financing of these systems and violations of Chapter 624 relating to contractors. At the hearing, the bill sponsor submitted a proposed amendment, which, if I can summarize after talking to the State Contractor Board attorney, it clarified definitions and the role of the lead generator. The proposed amendment that was heard at the hearing removed some specificity regarding matters to be adopted in regulations, and it removed provisions relating to financing due to the complexity of the issue. After the hearing, this amendment was revised, and that revision is the one attached to the work session cover sheet. Going through that, the major changes from the original proposed amendment are the addition of single-family residence after owner to better clarify who is covered. Number two, there are several appropriate references added to Chapter 598, the sections relating to deceptive trade practices, as they pertain to distributive generation systems. The third change was that the revision adds a definition of residential photovoltaic system. And the fourth change was that there were references added to the owner's ability to contact an attorney and receive the contract in another language. That covers the major changes. A fiscal note is on file for this bill. And that concludes my summary of SB 309. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Scully. Are there any questions? I believe we have the bill sponsor with us. No? Seeing none, I will entertain a motion to amend and do pass Senate Bill 303.
Madam Chair, I normally resist anti-competitive type, but anything that looks like anti-competitive legislation, but I think he's spot on with this one where we need to rid the market of the bad actors. So I'll move to amend and do pass.
I'll second it.
All right, we got a motion from Senator Pickard, a second from Senator Hammond. Any discussion on the motion? Seeing none, will the secretary please call the roll?
Senator Brooks?
Yes.
Senator Hammond?
Yes.
Senator Pickard?
Yes.
Senator Spearman?
Yes.
Chair Harris?
Yes, motion passes. I will assign that floor statement to Senator Brooks. And I will assign the floor statement for Senate Bill 288 to myself. Ms. Scully, if you would walk us through Senate Bill 371.
Thank you, Chair Harris. For the record, Susan Scully of the Research Division, Legislative Counsel Bureau. Senate Bill 371 relates to motor vehicles and was sponsored by this committee. Was heard on April 5th. Senate Bill 371 makes 3 changes to the Vehicle Miles Traveled, or VMT pilot study that was enacted in the 2019 session through AB 483. Those three changes are removing RVs from the list of motor vehicles required to submit odometer readings, directing the DMV to exclude odometer readings from the vehicle information reports provided to insurance companies for underwriting purposes, and 3, authorizing the DMV to adopt regulations providing for an administrative fine for failure to report odometer readings. At the hearing, Copart submitted a proposed amendment to clarify the vehicle reporting provisions in subsection 6 of section 2 of the bill. With the concurrence of Copart, the legal division revised the proposed amendment so that it tracks NRS 481.063 sub 6 sub D, and therefore will ensure consistent interpretations. And the proposed language is contained in the work session cover document. There is a fiscal note on file for the bill, and that concludes my summary of Senate Bill 371.
All right, thank you so much. Are there any questions? Okay, seeing none, I will entertain a motion. Oh, Senator Pickard, did you have a question?
Move to pass.
All right, do we have a second? Second from Vice.
Sorry, that should be amend to pass.
We have a motion to amend and do pass, a second from Vice Chair Brooks. Any discussion on the motion? Seeing none, will the Secretary please call the roll?
Senator Brooks?
Yes.
Senator Hammond?
Yes.
Senator Pickard?
Yes.
Senator Spearman?
Yes.
Chair Harris?
Yes, motion passes. I will assign the floor statement to Senator Hammond.
Yay.
All right. Ms. Scully, if you could walk us through Senate Bill 383. I can see the proverbial light at the end of the proverbial tunnel. We're almost there, guys.
Thank you, Chair Harris. For the record, Susan Scully for the Research Division, Legislative Council Bureau. Senate Bill 383 relates to electric bicycles, was sponsored by the Senate Committee on Growth and Infrastructure and heard on April 5th. This bill revises definitions applicable to electric bicycles, which I will call e-bikes from here on out. It creates 3 classes of e-bikes and makes conforming changes to statutes throughout the NRS referencing bicycles. The measure also clarifies that e-bikes can ride where other bicycles are permitted, except as otherwise specified or prohibited in state or federal law. It allows a local government or a state agency to prohibit the use of e-bikes or classes of e-bikes on shared use paths as needed to protect the health and safety, or to comply with other laws or legal obligations. It allows a local government or state agency to regulate the use of e-bikes on natural surface trails designed for non-motorized use. The bill also prohibits a person 15 years of age or younger from operating a Class 3 e-bike. It requires operators and passengers of a Class 3 e-bike to wear a bike helmet, requires compliance with federal manufacturing and equipment standards and certain labeling by manufacturers and distributors. It requires certain equipment and prohibits tampering with that equipment. It also adds bikes to provisions relating to property owners' liability for recreational bicycling on their property as set forth in Chapter 41 of the NRS, and adds e-bikes to the list, which also includes bikes and e-scooters for crimes against property in Chapter 205. There were several amendments proposed at the hearing. At the hearing, People for Bikes Coalition, who were the genesis of the idea for the bill, submitted 2 proposed amendments to Section 9. As you can see here, the first one clarified the applicability of the equipment and manufacturing requirements, clarifying that it would be for bikes sold on or after October 1, 2021, a new electric bike sold on or after October 2021. It also amended subsection 3 to break out the 2 ors in subsection 3 to make it more clear. Secondly, the Tahoe Pyramid Trail Organization proposed 2 amendments at the hearing. They proposed an amendment to subsection 3 of section 5, which would clarify that the natural surface trails could include occasional hydrologic controls such as bridges or pervious patching materials. They also proposed another amendment which asked that the label have a be larger. That last amendment to which I referred about the label was not supported by People for Bikes, as they are not in a position to control or change the size of the label. With that concludes my summary of Senate Bill 383. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Ms. Scully. And I just want to clarify for the record that People for Bikes does find the first piece of that last amendment friendly, just not the label portion. Is that correct?
For the record, Susan Fisher, yes.
Oh, great. Thank you, Ms. Fisher. All right, with that, I'll accept a motion to amend and do pass Senate Bill 383 with all of the amendments as discussed, except for the labeling provision.
Can we discuss it for just a second?
Of course.
I find my mute here. So, after reviewing, I remember sitting through the testimony. The biggest reservation I had was when we got to the differences between the tiers. I guess it's just a lot of regulation, and sometimes I look at the regulation and I try to figure out, is it necessary or not? And when we were looking at whether or not somebody could ride on a tier 3 bike, I believe it was, that was about 8 miles an hour faster than a tier 2 or tier 1. I just, at that point, I start to wonder how much regulation do we need in this area? And for that reason, I'm not that comfortable with the bill. So I'm just going to be a no today. And I just want to make sure that I put that on the record.
Thank you, Senator Hammond. Senator Pickard.
Hey, Madam Chair, I concur with my colleague. They even testified that there's zero data to support the need. And, I can just imagine a police officer stopping this kid and saying, let me look at the label. Is this a class 2 or a class 3? And I mean, it's just, I think this is totally unnecessary. It's an overreach by government to get into the heads of the parents. That's their job. I'm a no on this.
Any further discussion? All right, I will accept a motion to amend and do pass Senate Bill 383.
I move to amend, do pass.
Motion from Vice Chair Brooks.
I'll second.
Second from Senator Spearman. Is there any discussion on the motion? Any further discussion? Seeing none, will the Secretary please call the roll?
Senator Brooks?
Yes.
Senator Hammond?
No.
Senator Pickard?
No.
Senator Spearman?
Yes.
Chair Harris?
Yes. And with that, the motion carries. Senator Pickard, I was going to let you in on the fun for the floor statement, but given that you were a no, I will double up on Senator Brooks, if that's okay with you, Vice Chair.
Thank you.
All right. We're at the end, guys. Let's go ahead and open it up for public comment. BPS, please pull the line.
Thank you, Chair. Callers, if you would like to give public comment, please press star 9 now to enter the queue. Once again, callers, if you would like to make public comment, please press star 9 now to enter the queue. Chair Harris, at this time, no callers are indicating that they wish to give public comment.
All right, thank you. Before we close it out, I'd like to offer Senator Spearman the opportunity to put your vote on the record. We voted out SCR 8, SJR 12, and SB 405 in your absence. If the secretary will walk us through, we'll start with SCR 8. Senator Spearman.
Yes.
All right, SCR 12, SJR 12, excuse me,
Yes.
and SB 405.
Yes.
Okay, I will assign the floor statements for those. Senate Bill 405, I will take. SCR 8, I will hand off to Senator Pickard, if you're willing. All right, lovely. And SJR 12, I will offer to Senator Hammond.
Of course.
Awesome. Thank you so much. With that, everyone, we are adjourned. Have a great day.